Hello, everyone. This is Massimo speaking. I'm the CEO and founder of AdEspresso. Really happy to welcome you to today's webinar, which is going to be amazing. And it was so amazing. Usually we do this webinar just for customers, but this one we really wanted to do it open for everyone because it doesn't happen every day to have Andrea Val presenting a webinar. Andrea, I don't even know how to introduce you. So you are public speaker, you do training, you do
Yep.
consultancy,
Yep.
you manage Facebook ads, you are a stand-up comedian, you are the co-author of Facebook Marketing All-in-One for Dummies. What else?
Yeah, you got most of it. I think
Awesome.
good. Well, I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be a ton of fun. So thank you so much to you, Massimo, and all of AdEspresso for hosting this. This is going to be great. So let's just do we just dive in? Do we just go?
Yeah, our
Let's-
pleasure to have you here, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
yeah.
And guys, we are getting started. I'll just be in the background monitoring your question. Whenever you want, just write them down in the GoToWebinar interface. If there is something that makes total sense with what Andrea is saying right now, I'll pop in and ask her. Otherwise, we'll have plenty of time to do question and answers at the end of the webinar. But in the meanwhile, just write them down. And there you go, Andrea. I'll mute
Awesome.
myself.
Awesome. Yeah. So great. So today we're going to cover how to get new customers and new clients as a social media manager. And, you know, that term social media manager or consultant can be so broad because, all know you wear a lot of hats. So this can cover a lot of different things and really apply to any type of consulting or business that you might be dipping your toe into or trying to grow or boost your business. But we're going to talk about how to narrow your focus, two ways to you can network better, and then really how to create that type of content that will draw new clients to you, as well as all of the 7 strategies. But before we get too deep into this, I know Massimo did introduce me. I'm going to share a little bit more about my story. So this was me about 10 years ago. And I had been laid off from my job. I was scared, broke, drunk, and growing out my facial hair. And so I did what anyone in that position would do is I put on a wig, started a blog as Grandma Mary, social media edutainer, worked my butt off, and got a book deal. And so now, with the help of social media and Facebook advertising, this is me today. I'm happy, healthy, and I've had a good waxing. and and with the help of social media and my blog and Facebook ads, I now have time to hand dry my laundry on the beach, right? so so that's a little bit of my story. I like to just do these things to kind of amuse myself. So I hope I hope you don't mind that I just like to make myself laugh. And and that is kind of partially how things worked for me, actually, is that I was laid off from my job and I had a 1-year-old son at home, and I knew that I didn't want to go back to work. And so I was staying at home and using my severance package to stay at home with my son. But I also found that I got a little bit bored and I needed to do something else. And I kind of got antsy. So I ended up starting an in home wine tasting business, which was a great sideline to having toddlers at home because you could drink on the job. It was perfect. And now, I'm a blogger, so it's the same, right? so so I actually was using social media. This is how it all kind of started here is I was using social media to promote my wine tasting business. And what ended up happening was I had people who were also entrepreneurs in my area saying, I see what you're doing with that. Can you teach me? I want to learn how to use Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Back in the day, there was only like 4 social networks, so it was a lot easier. But so I started helping other people, and what I realized that was there wasn't any blogs out there that were really entertaining and fun while helping you learn and also kind of walking you through the step-by-step process. So I decided to take one of my improv comedy characters. I did improv comedy for 8 years, and I decided to take Grandma Mary and start my blog. And Grandma Mary's motto is, if Grandma Mary can do it, then you can do it too, right? So she was kind of a little cranky about everything. And that is really what helped me stand out and actually did help me grow and lead to the fact that I got a book deal, because I made some online connections with my fellow co-author, Phyllis Kerr. We also co-authored with Amy Porterfield for the first 2 editions, and then I went on to do the 3rd edition. So, you really never know where your social connections are going to lead, and that's what I think is so amazing about this, because we're making connections out there, and even if it's not leading to a client, even if it's not leading to the next perfect thing, you can get referrals. You get have people have these connections and say, hey, I've got an opening and we need someone with your skill set. And so it's just an amazing time we're in to grow your own business and to really make these connections with social media. So that's my little bit of my background and how I got here, and kind of a little bit more about my funniness. And now I do stand-up comedy. Actually, I do stand-up comedy, and I just actually did some stand-up comedy in Hollywood Laugh Factory, so that was super fun. So let's dive into the content and talk about these 7 ways to get better clients. Number 1 is to network better. And what does that really mean? That means really focusing on some of these events that are going to lead to more clients, conferences, events, social platforms, online and offline networking. Think about both of those things. Having a clear commercial or unique selling proposition, USP, a lot of times at these networking events, or when you're being introduced or introducing yourself to someone, you've got that little commercial, and you really want to hone that and make that very interesting and engaging to people, and practice that so it just kind of rolls right off your tongue. And then have a clear next step from in your funnel from these events, and follow through. And I am guilty of this as well. I'm not always perfectly following up with people I meet at conferences, and that can really make a difference. When I do take time to do that, I get great results. So definitely make sure you're following up. And then tracking what's working with you for these events or conferences, especially, making sure that you are understanding that you're actually getting business from these events. So, that was kind of a lot to say, okay, now you got to go to all these conferences and these meetups and these networking events, but you really need to design the way and the funnel that works for you, because sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I'm really not that outgoing. I hate going to events. I hate I hate meeting people, and that's okay. Just because you're in social media doesn't mean that you're an extrovert. Actually, I find that a lot of people who are in social media and in this business as a social media manager consultant are actually fairly introverted. And that's why networking online can be a good place, a good option for you. And we have people in our social media manager school course that do this very well. They're really, really shy, and they just kind of find certain groups. They participate in certain tweet chats, and they network in online groups. But if you are more extroverted, find these events and meetups where you are going to get the biggest bang for your buck. And the challenge is there's a lot of possibilities out there. So how do you narrow that down? And one way is to make sure that you're participating in places where you're standing out a little bit more in certain local groups. So here's an example of one of my local groups. It's just a group in my area, has 10,000 people, and I'm sharing great tips in there. And actually, this is a case of the business owner who's sharing the tip for me. the shared this into the group, and I am very visible in that local group because I'm one of the only people who is a social media consultant and manager who's participating there. So that can help you stand out and help get you connected to local business owners who are going to potentially hire you. So 2 ways to network better are really focusing on groups that have established business owners. I think I've definitely found that sometimes we get into a comfort zone with some of this where we are like, oh, but I like all these people and they're all very nice. And of course they're all really nice, but you also want to make sure that they've got funds to hire you. So I like to look for groups that have businesses of where people have been in business at least 5 years if possible. And startups can have money, they can they can have funding, but not sometimes they're on a shoestring budget. So you want to have that group that has that established business owner. And then focus on events that don't have people who do what you do. So I often like to speak at events that are very industry focused and focused on, like this was an example of an event where I spoke where it was all authors and a lot of successful authors who had multiple books, but they didn't have anyone in the group who was doing what I did. So after the conference, I got a lot of business because they're all like, hey, you're the one who has the knowledge here. We need to work with you. And we know you. You've made a presentation. We got to connect with you. So that can be good for conferences, but even just thinking about going to conferences or events that don't have a whole bunch of social media managers. And of course, like I just went to, for example, Social Media Marketing World, which is a fantastic event, wonderful. I love going to that event every year. And but there are a lot of people who already do what I do. And, so go to those events for learning and training, but also make sure you're mixing up the types of events you go to so that you are standing out a little bit more. So now let's talk about your 60-second commercial, because this is super important to help draw someone to you. You want to have the focus on what's in it for the other person, the WIFM, what's in it for me, not like I did this, I did this, I do this. It's what is their life going to look like after I work with you? And how, really focus on how you help your current customers. How do you, what do you do for your current customers that allow, them to take the mind off of social media, for example? So a lot of times my super short commercial that is kind of attention grabbing is really addresses some of the pain points that people have. It's, I spend all day on Facebook, so you don't have to. So it's kind of that pain point that someone has. They don't want to do handle the social media themselves. They want someone else to do it. They know it's super important, and if you can say that in a super succinct way that takes away that pain point, that can really help connect and draw people to you. So the other thing you need to make sure too is you want to have those up-to-date business cards. And what I mean by personalize them is if you're handing someone your business card, you can what I do is either write on the back something that we talked about and then hand it to them, or I do that for my own, when I get their card from them, is I write on the back what we talked about. Because that way it's easier for me to follow up with someone. And on my business card, I have a picture of myself. And sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to put a picture of myself on my card. It's so awkward. But it really helps someone remember you. So if you can have your picture, that's a good thing. And I think that was all I was going to say about the 60-second commercial. Yeah. Okay, good. And then the other thing with networking and connecting is you really, once people are connecting to you, they're going to go check you out. So you want to make sure your own social sites are optimized, of course. Be your own first customer with this. you want to have a professional headshot. Make sure your cover images are all optimized. And this is an example from LinkedIn, but it kind of talks about the headline, summary, professional experience, keywords throughout. But this is really for all your social sites, in your Facebook About page, in your, as much as you can have on Twitter and your other bio sections, and keep it very consistent so that you're recognized throughout all your social sites. Keep your branding consistent. And definitely, kind of talk about your unique selling proposition in the About section and really refine these words so that you're drawing people into you. You need to be able to stand out from the crowd these days. And you don't have to wear a wig. That's just how I happen to do it. I happen to blend my love of wig wearing with my business. But you can get pretty weird and still have a good business. I am living proof of that. Just don't get too weird, okay, right? So, number two in how to get new customers is to consider niching. And this kind of is going to be a little bit of a series here, but niching by industry can really help you grow and help you narrow your focus. And I know this was something that I was really scared to do when I first started. I was like, yes, I do everything. But when you niche by and narrow your focus down, you're going to draw more people to you and increase your referrals. So you really want to blend an area you know deeply with the service people will pay for. So we have a lot of great experiences from people in our social media manager school who do this really, really well. So I'm going to show you some examples. But if you are niching by industry, the good thing is you're already fluent in that language of that industry, in knowledge of like what's really happening and what the terms are. I started out doing some medical clients, and I had to really learn the lingo because I was not fluent in medical little acronyms and stuff like that. And then the other nice thing is that you're going to love your business a little bit more because you're interested in that industry. And industries, not every industry is going to be a perfect place to niche. You want to make sure that people in that industry have, first of all, the funds to pay you. It can be challenging to niche by artist, for example, because artists often are shoestringing their budget, but you can focus on maybe the successful artists and really target the people who just want to focus on their art, but they're doing well and they have the funds to outsource their social media. But I think almost every industry has potential for success. I think if it's someone who is maybe just starting out and doing crafty projects, they may not have the funds to pay for someone to outsource. So you want to make sure that you are, again, focusing on the right types of customers that have the budget for the marketing. And nonprofits, this is kind of a thing that I definitely find people, sometimes have mixed results with, is nonprofits. Some people say, oh, the nonprofit just has no budget. But there are a ton of nonprofits out there who do have the budget, who have that focused piece for marketing, and they know the value of social media. So here's some examples from students in our group. There, Timberly Jones actually focuses on the bike industry, which I think that's pretty niche right there. But you can think about that and think there's lots of different options for that. You could, bike stores. There's people who have bike gear who are, maybe even into racing in certain types of areas. Like I actually did social media for a bike race every year. I did all the tweeting, I did all the posting for them. That was early when I first started, and it was in a local space, and they were really doing a lot of social media to get the word out about their brand new bike race that was coming back after a long hiatus. So that was a really cool gig because it was it was kind of short, focused time frame. and a lot of work during that time frame, and then it was done, and then I got the gig again for the next couple years. So, that can be a really good way to kind of have some of what you enjoy in your business. And then here's another one, construction and agriculture. I mean, I actually presented not long ago at the Colorado Agricultural Leaders group. And kind of the interesting thing was I got to really dive into what farmers are doing on social media and, kind of train people on some of the things that are working well. And there's all kinds of hay baling apps and all kinds of cool stuff out there. And, farmers are really kind of realizing they also need some promotion as well, or agricultural companies need we all need marketing, right? So that can be a way to focus if you're a farmer. And then creating content just for that industry. This is an example from Janet Kennedy. She has a podcast on Get Social Health, and she's really focused on the healthcare industry. That was her background, and her podcast is really, really successful. She's got a great, thriving business. She actually started up on the side. So she started a few years ago with us and was growing her business on the side, just doing part-time while she had her full-time job, getting it up to a certain point where then she was finally able to quit. And now she's one of the go-to people for social media for healthcare. And she's actually partnered with the Mayo Clinic, and all kinds of amazing things have happened in her business because she really stands out as someone who focuses just on that niche. So another way to niche is to niche by skill. So this can also be a good thing if you have a skill set that you really enjoy, like maybe it's graphic design. So maybe you focus on creating social media images and you have packages that are just for, I'm going to design 20 different images for you, and, you'll tell me what you're promoting and I will size all the images correctly. And, there are tools out there, of course. There's tools like Canva. There's tools like, of course, other graphics tools that I'm not a graphic person, so I can't even remember the tool name of the graphic design tools. But there's, people who are in business don't know about these tools. They don't know what the sizes are. They don't want to mess with it. So they want to outsource this. And you could also niche by advertising. And that's actually what I've now done, is really focus more on Facebook ads. So that's kind of how I narrowed my focus. I used to do all social posting for people, and that's where I started. But I just really decided, you know what, my favorite thing to do is the ads. So I just do that now. Maybe you're really great at writing. Maybe you are really quick at writing 50 tweets and you upload them and get them scheduled. Maybe it's all about growth. So maybe you say, here's my package for helping you grow your following in the right way, not by purchasing crazy followers, but really, really focusing on good growth. Maybe it's ghostwriting for blogging. So, again, there a lot of this content bleeds over into different things like blogging, email newsletters, writing is all part of social media as well. So you could realize that you have the great skill set of being able to develop the keywords and write and write the posts correctly and get them uploaded. So that's a skill that you could do. And this is an example from Lisa in our and I just totally blanked out on her last name right now, but she was doing more social media, and then she kind of niched into copywriting and ghostwriting for blog posts and creating content for people. Because if businesses don't have good content, then they're not going to have anything to share. So this is a huge skill. And visual content, of course, the Canva, Snagit, Adobe Spark, Lumen 5, and you can charge a good amount. It could be a package price. Charging $25 per image is really low, actually, when you consider what some graphic designers are charging. So as you get better and better, you can up your rates a little bit. But you can create a whole bunch of images pretty quickly with some of these tools. And if you're really fast at that and really good at that, then that can be where you niche. So niche by skill advertising. So that's, these are some examples of social advertising. Maybe you focus just on Facebook. Maybe you do all platforms. Maybe you add in Google advertising as well. So that can be a skill set that you focus on. So the other way to niche is by social platform. Maybe you only do Facebook, only do Instagram, only do YouTube or LinkedIn. There's lots of people who are focusing just on that social platform, and that can really help you in speaking and training as well. Maybe you're going to just focus on workshops. And if you're going to just have Instagram workshops or Instagram webinars, then that would be how you focus your business, and maybe it's training you're focusing on more as well. So here's some examples. When you do niche by a social site, you can also increase your referrals. This was a conversation happening in a group that I belong in, and people are like looking for an expert for Facebook promos with a conference, and I got lots of people in that group who were referring me, and I didn't even see this conversation until after someone had tagged me. So, you've got people working for you in other places when you're the go-to expert in that field. And then here's another example from Kathy Yurgis. She just does LinkedIn training, so that can, again, help you optimize your focus and optimize all of the language you use and all of your content. Everything can be just focused on that platform. So creating content, that is another great way to draw people to you and showcase your expertise. You want to have the written content, blog posts, social posts. You want to have visual content, quotes, tips, images, video content, of course, Facebook Live, quick tutorials, email newsletter for sure. You want to make sure that you're connecting to people through email. And I do mine weekly. You could do it monthly if you want, or every 2 weeks. Try and get on a regular schedule with sending your newsletter out. And when I talk to a lot of social media managers and consultants, this is one thing I find that people are not consistent on, is the email newsletter. And email just is not dead. People think, well, I'm posting on the social sites, so people should see my content. But they really don't. It really happens in the email a lot of times, and you want to stay top of mind with people where they're hanging out. And of course, email isn't everything. That's why we have to post in other places and use things like retargeting and do that. But having a regular email newsletter will help you add value to your email newsletter list and then get customers. I have people who have been on my email list for years before they finally hire me. So they're like, I knew that as soon as I had the funds, as soon as I was ready to go with this business idea, that you were the first person I wanted to connect with. So that's what the power of your email newsletter can do for you. So that all this content really helps establish yourself as the expert. And some people get a little bit scared about creating content. I know I do too. I'm like, what do I have new to say here? What, it's already all out there, and people have content shock, and, there's too much going on out there. It's a noisy world. But people need to hear your take on it, and they need to hear you kind of deliver that content, because you explain it in a different way. You focus on different things. And even if you are kind of talking about similar things, you want to just make sure that people see that you know what you're talking about, and that you do have some opinions on that, so they know what it's like, what your philosophy is behind social media, so they can say, yes, this is the type of person I want to work with. The other thing that's kind of scary with this is you don't have to do all of these things, but pick what's right for you. And I started out where I was only doing video blogging. That's all I did with Grandma Mary. I was like, oh, I don't like writing. I just wanted to do a video. And and so that's what I would do. I would just do a short video. I would do really short post with it, and then I would send the email newsletter. And now definitely realize the value of the written content, and I've gotten better because I've had to write a lot of content with the books that are 700 pages long, crazy books. Um, and so now I do like writing the blog posts, and I've added that in. So I kind of, did a couple of these things and got a little bit better and got a bigger team that can help me with things, and then, can do more. So start with just one or two and do those things well, and then, add in when it makes sense. So content is really this attraction-based marketing, and you want to answer the questions that your customers have here. And this is on the left side is Liz Jostis from Eli Rose, and she does some great videos, and she kind of helps people understand what she can do for them with this video on what tasks can I outsource. So that can be really good because there are people who are like, well, I want to work with you, but I don't know how to work with you. So that's what she was kind of answering in that video. And then in I'm really been doing a lot more Facebook Live videos here, but then I also multi-purpose or repurpose this content. So I'll do a Facebook Live that will kind of support a blog post that I'm doing, and then I will download that blog post or download that video. I'll upload it to YouTube, share it in other places like LinkedIn and Twitter, and then I will embed that video in my blog post. And then I have lots and lots of content from that one piece of content that I'm doing. So that make sure that you're maximizing that content and not just creating it and then being done with it. So frequently asked questions are a really, really helpful way for you to even think about what content should I even write about. So what do people ask you all the time? Again, repurposing that content, but watch what content does well for you already. So if, for example, your certain Facebook posts are getting more engagement, then you might want to consider, hey, let's develop this into a little bit more a longer piece, or let's kind of even break this down into different pieces perhaps, and make sure that I'm promoting that. So in this example, I always go to the posts area on my insights, and I switch to engagement rate. See that little down arrow there? And I switch that to engagement rate so I can see which posts have the most engagement. And what that is that takes the amount of people, the number of people who've engaged with the post divided by the reach. So it gives you a more normalized percentage there. So now you can say, hey, this one actually did pretty well, even though it didn't get great reach. I'm going to, maybe do some more content around that. Or maybe that's a case where you say, let's boost that post so that I can, have that content go further because it was interesting to people. So that's the way I look at my content. I also look at my website statistics for sure and say, okay, what content can I reuse or redo? What needs to be updated because it's been a while? And that's the other challenging thing with having content about social media is we can't necessarily always build on the content that we've done in the past because everything changes, right? So that's frustrating. And Mari Smith does a great job with her Q&A sessions too. So that, if you are going to do a Q&A session on Facebook Live, you want to make sure you're promoting that really well because sometimes it's hard when you're not getting a lot of Q's for your A's. So at least have some idea of what you might talk about as well. So number 6 is to develop a better funnel. And this can really help you streamline your onboarding process and streamlining the way people are getting connected into you. So you want to think about the customer journey. Think about how they get connected to you in the beginning and how they're tapping into your network. Find out what they need, provide it at a comfortable cost, and then design that funnel for success. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here. And then what types of funnels are easy for your ideal clients? What works best? Sometimes people want a phone call. Some people don't want a phone call at all. Some people want to, really get to connect with you by reading something. Some people, again, just like to just go ahead and buy it. They see what you're about and they're like, boom, done, I'm buying it. So, um, you know, think about that for your ideal client. Actually, I do find that older clients want a phone call. So if that's your market, they don't want to text. Although I have some older clients that actually are really into text. One guy texts me a little bit too much, so there's boundaries there, right? So so you have to again make sure that you're serving your clients in the right way. So think about that journey and how people initially get connected to you. So here's an example from Jason Goff. I always pronounce his name wrong. Joff. Yeah. So I like that he's got a video there, so it has people get to know him initially and then have a download so that they can kind of optimize their online presence a little bit with his download, and then they realize, hey, you know what, I really just need someone to help me with this. I need a consultation here, and I want to know a little bit more. But think about how you even get connected with a potential person you're going to work with. Maybe it's you got on their email list somehow. Maybe you realize that email with that great content leads to something more. Maybe it's even straight to a purchase, or maybe it is like, hey, let's get on a phone call first. So email list is huge. Hopefully, I know you guys are all smart on this call and realize that, developing your email list, especially with the changes in social media, is really critical so that you own that list. Having something like a free website audit, having something that will really benefit someone directly related to what you do, and that can lead them down the right path is a good thing. And don't be scared to give away great ideas and great content there. That was something I was super afraid of in the beginning. I'm like, well, if I tell everyone all the stuff, then they're just going to do it and they're not going to hire me. That's totally not true. And there will be some people who do it and don't hire you, and that's okay. But there'll be a lot of people who say, you know what, I still need help with this. I thought that maybe I could do it myself, but I just need some really focused advice here. And automating this process will help you streamline things and also save you a ton of time with emailing. So I have a calls process, and this also helps with the people who do want that initial call, that you're not spending all this time kind of consulting with them where they're getting a ton of free advice from you, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, great, that's all I needed. So I have a 15-minute call, and it's very focused in just kind of finding out a little bit more about them, telling them how I work and how what they can learn from me, um, and maybe giving them a couple of little nuggets of advice, but not, it's not a consultation call. And what you need to do is set some boundaries around that so that so that they know that it's not going to be a let's pick your brain for 45 minutes and then I'll decide if I want to work with you or not. So, if it goes to down that route, I say it sounds like you really could use a social media consultation with me. So what I would recommend is your next step is to book some time with me where we can go into that deeper. So If they're the type who is like, well, I just really want to know what you know before I hire you. Well, that's taking advantage of you right there. Your knowledge is your business and your time is your business too. So your time needs to be guarded very carefully. And oftentimes, though, I will be able to close most of the calls that I have with people. So it is worthwhile having a 15-minute call. And I never meet them for coffee. It's never a coffee meeting because those take way too long. And that is definitely a brain picker paradise right there because you can't get out of there in 15 minutes. So I say, that's not what I have available. I have a 15-minute initial call. And then from there, I have other places people can schedule. So I'm not going back and forth with people saying, okay, do you have Thursday at 5 a or 3 p.m. or whatever. So that helps automate. And then also automate your discovery process. So this can be really beneficial so that you're gathering information from someone, and you can do that like embedded on your site or just create a Google form. And I think you can embed Google Forms as well, but you can just have a Google form that you send people to. We do this all the time with gathering information, have different questions, develop what you want to learn from them. And, I definitely find that I have to tweak that form quite a bit because I realize, hey, I need actually a little more information from people. And then adding your personality into your site. This can be really helpful because a lot of times people want to read a lot about you before deciding if they're going to work with you or not. So have some images, maybe have that video, share your credentials. And this is actually kind of a stat that I recently came across that really kind of woke me up a little bit into how many reviews and testimonials you might need before someone decides if they're going to do business with you. 85% said they read up to 10 before they can trust a business, and that's huge. So you have to have those testimonials on every page of your site if you can, especially, of course, on the sites where it's maybe your sales page or your about page. Have them in your bio section of your different social sites. So the more testimonials you can gather, the better. So you got to woo your potential customers with your words. And this is something that I never appreciated until about halfway through my business. I really realized the huge impact that good copywriting can have for you, and really kind of helping your customer understand what is going to happen after working with you, and kind of really focusing on their needs and what you offer. So definitely invest some time into developing your copywriting skills or hire someone to do that for you. I often find it's really hard for me to write about myself. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty good. I don't know. So having someone else do that for you can be a huge benefit. And then another cool thing that you can do is just having case studies. This is Lisa Wozniak in our school. She did this cool thing where she asked her customers if she could do case studies, and then kind of share what she did for her customers and put that onto her site. And then when potential clients asked, can I see some case studies or how this has helped people, she can just direct them to the link, have them read through some of these case studies, and she definitely found that it improved her close rate with potential customers. So number 7 is to focus on referrals, because referrals are something where a business is about 75% closed at the point someone gives you a referral. So they can be a really easy source of customers where you don't have to spend a lot of time working with them. Often it can just be like a phone call or just a quick conference where they want to get to know you better. But usually someone else has done all the pre-sales work for you. They have just done something where they say, hey, you've got to work with her because she really helped me out. And what can be good is partnering with someone who can be a referral partner for you. So, for example, if you know someone who does SEO work, they often need someone are working with people who then also need social media. They're working with your perfect potential clients. So partner up and cross refer to each other. And then ask your current customers, who else do you know who could use my services? Or is there anyone else that I should connect with who, might also need social media? Because they're often looking for people to refer business, or, they often connect with other people in the same circles who can also use social media services. And then letting people know you have an extra slots available. This can be really good just for your network. So for example, oh, I forgot to put that example in there. I had an example where just posting about posting saying, hey, I've got 3 more slots available, or I just finished some projects, I have some open time. If you know anyone who needs social media help, who needs Facebook ads help, or whatever your niche might be, then let me know. And that can get people thinking. So keys to getting referrals is really working with the right customers initially. So, what this means is work with customers who you can make a difference with, who you can help, who there's lots of ways to have red flags around potential customers, but working with those right customers can help you then get better referrals. And they need to have reasonable expectations. So when I see a customer that has some red flags, we're like, you know what, we want, 10-to-1 conversions on, and we need this and this, and we need immediate ROI in the first 2 weeks, or we're not going to do this, then that's not reasonable. And if you work with that person, they're going to be upset and disappointed. So those can be red flags, and you want to say, you know what, I don't think I'm the right person for you. And this is something I've had to get better at as well, is just tooting your own horn and accentuating kind of what you're doing out there in the world, but also accentuating the good parts of what you've done for the client, because they don't necessarily know what's reasonable either. So I'm always saying this result is really good. We're getting really good. This is working really well, and maybe this is something that's not working as well. We're going to stop doing that. And they're happy that you are managing that. They don't have to figure that out on their own, and that can help you, look really good as well, and make you look like a rock star. And then being very proactive too. I'm very proactive in trying to communicate with my customers and saying, hey, I just saw this happening and I just wanted to let you know, or whatever is going on, and is it okay if I make this change or something like that. So, being very communicative can really help. And then make sure you get those testimonials right after or during the campaign, because that's going to help you again with that social proof. So, make sure you get that quickly. And what I like to do is try and request that on LinkedIn, because then it shows up on my LinkedIn profile, but then I can also copy and paste it and put it on my site, or just let people know, hey, you can go to my Facebook page and give me a review. That would be really helpful. So some key takeaways here, and then we'll have some time for questions, is really just focusing on, I know there's kind of a lot of information here, a lot of strategies, and it can feel a little overwhelming, like, oh my God, I've got to start doing all these things. Really just focus on 1 or 2 of these strategies and start optimizing that, and then continue working your way through in whatever way makes sense. And definitely measure what works best to grow your business. Because what I found I was doing is I was going to networking events and I was like, you know what, I've never gotten a single customer from this event. So even though I like those people, I really just have to stop doing that. So make sure you're really tracking that and figuring out what works for you. So awesome. So I have a couple of gifts for you guys, and then we'll have time for questions. If there's any questions, we could talk about anything really. So I have a couple of free little giveaways for you. One is this free set of case studies, and this can be really helpful for you guys. I actually already kind of alluded to some of the case studies in this presentation, but it kind of talks about different aspects, like it's going from part-time into full-time, and kind of what's worked for some of the students who are in our social media manager school. Also going to an agency level, networking more online, or also kind of talking about how people have done with their email list and things like that. So those case studies, if you're interested in kind of seeing what's worked for other social media managers and maybe get inspired by that, take a look at that set of case studies. You can download those immediately and get access to all of those little ebooks. And they go through like, how they grew, what their challenges were, what they might do differently. So it's really, really beneficial. And then I have a free webinar next week on 3 ways to command higher fees as a social media manager. And this is one that Phyllis Kerr and I are co-presenting. Phyllis is the co-founder of Social Media Manager School as well, and she also was the co-author of Facebook Marketing All-in-One for Dummies with me and Amy Porterfield. And so you can sign up for that. That is going to be recorded. It's on Tuesday, April 3rd. So grab a seat into that. We're going to be talking about ways to work with higher end clients, because it's a lot easier sometimes to work with a fewer number of clients at a higher rate rather than lots of smaller clients. So that can really help streamline your own business and make your lives a little more sane, I've found, for sure. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah, right? Right.
Oh my
So
God, when we had an agency before AdEspresso, what we discovered very early is that customers with few money will actually bother you much more than customers
yes,
with a lot of money.
it's so true. So true. They can be the 80% of the problem, right?
Yeah, you're
What's
not the
that 80/20
consultant.
rule?
You are immediately their friend. They will call you at dinner time to ask for advices.
Yep.
Awesome. Andrea, thank you so much. I think you
Yep.
should have titled this 7 ways to get more customers, because I think really all the advices fit for every kind of businesses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I literally saw a lot of the things that you were recommending also on the strategies that we use for to grow at Espresso, like focus on niches. Everyone was telling us do 5, 6 advertising networks, and we stick with Facebook. And
Mm-hmm.
I think also owning the email list is extremely important. I see
Yeah.
everyone now talking about Web 3.0. You don't need a
Uh,
blog, you don't need
yeah.
anything, you just do Facebook, Twitter. But
Yeah.
you end up not owning anything. If they make some
Right.
change, you lose all your business.
Right, right, for sure. I mean, definitely with Facebook's change with their algorithm, it's really affected certain businesses. And I know it's challenging to get email addresses from people sometimes. They're like, I think people are getting a little bit more wary of giving you an email address. But if you have a good giveaway that's really valuable, it's not hard at all. And as long as you continue to deliver good value through your email list, your unsubscribe rate will be low.
Oh my God, totally. We have people actually writing us, thanking us for the content. So
Yeah, yeah.
awesome. That was really great. And it's actually one of the first webinars that I see where we have more people at the end of the webinar than the number of people we started. So no one dropped off. And everyone was so engaged with your presentation. There are
Awesome.
tons of comments here. Cool, very funny, so funny, love it. You keep anticipating my sarcasm. So everyone was super engaging. I think they didn't even have time to write question.
Yeah,
Now it's your time, but we
yeah.
already have a bunch of them, Andrea.
Awesome,
So let's
awesome.
get started with Manuela, which actually lives nearby, and she has a great question for markets that are not as advanced as United States or the big cities.
Mhm.
So she's asking for some tips on social media in the B2B industry. And basically, what she's saying is that where she lives, outside of the big cities like Milan, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the SMEs, the small medium businesses out there, they don't even realize that they need social media yet.
Right, right.
So she's asking for some tips on when meeting them in person, how she can convince them that social media is a thing also for B2B,
Yeah,
which is actually.
yeah, yeah, for sure. The the I mean, I think that's where case studies can help them too, and so that can be challenging though if you're sometimes what I do is I research case studies on things that have happened so I can kind of showcase that in a presentation. Um, and also giving them just a couple of tips for free can be good too, and say what's possible. um, and and really understanding, I mean, sometimes if if a potential client has already got enough business doing what they're doing, then I'm like, nah, then maybe you don't need social media. Or if their business is so small that, or their focus is so small, sometimes social media can't help as well. So there was an example of a customer who was actually looking for they lived in Alaska, and they were a realtor looking for people who are about to move in this area where they didn't even have enough people to advertise to. They were like, oh, my target is too small for for the area because not many people live here. I'm like, well, then at that point you just need to go door to door. If your target is so small that it's easier to pick up a phone and call them, then maybe you just need to do that. And social media can certainly, for certain businesses like that, social media and having a good web presence is for sure a great assist in that case. But you need to understand a little bit about how they're working now, and B2B is a little more challenging sometimes for certain industries if the focus is very, very narrow. If they've got a wider focus, then sometimes it's still very beneficial. I think it can help just keep you top of mind with customers, with your current customers, and maybe that's an angle you take it from, is you say, how are you staying top of mind with your current customers, and doing things like the retargeting, of course, or just having those posts to stay top of mind on social media can be helpful. So it can depending on the business, but yeah, there's lots of advantages, of course, that you just always have to kind of figure out what their perfect angle might be there.
And also show them what their competitors are doing if they aren't doing
Yeah,
social
that's
media.
true too.
That's a terrible driver, but a lot of people just say, hey, my competitor has 5,000 fans. I need more
Yeah,
engagement and I need more likes,
yeah,
which is not a good reason usually to get
yeah,
started
right,
with
right,
social
right.
media, but it works for selling it.
Right.
Awesome. Next question. Are there any specific networking event or association you recommend getting involved in?
So wait, what was the question? Sorry.
Are there any specific networking events or
Oh,
associations you
okay, okay.
recommend getting involved in?
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people have had success with BNI. I think it's worldwide. But BNI is a networking group where you do pay to be involved, and a lot of the groups will only take one of a certain type of field, and that can be beneficial too because you're the only one in that group. But BNI also does have some pretty strict requirements on what you do. You have to have referrals for other people, and it does cost money. I think there's just tons of association events that need speakers for sure, and by speaking in front of groups, that can be really beneficial because people get to know you a little bit. There's lots of meetups that need speakers, so that have business owners who are part of that meetup, and even doing your own workshop can help draw people to you and business owners to you. But yeah, I would say just doing some Googling around different associations and different, and BNI is a good group, and then also just the meetups, and try it out and see what type of people are there, and then make a decision if you think that might be a good fit.
Awesome. And yes, Robin is telling us that BNI is also in UK,
Yeah.
Thailand, and other countries.
Okay. Yeah.
Never heard of them actually in Italy, but probably they exist.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people asking for replay. So we'll be publishing the recording everywhere on our private group, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel. And while Andrea was talking, I actually added in the chat the link to the two things that Andrea was pitching. So the case studies ebook and the bit.ly link for our next webinar, which you should not miss, and also the link to our YouTube channel where you will find the recording in a bunch of hours.
Awesome.
We are down to the last two questions, Andrea.
Okay.
The next one is if you have any good book about social media that you would recommend on top of yours.
That's so hard. I almost don't even recommend mine now because it's hard to keep things current. So my Facebook Marketing All-in-One for Dummies came out in 2014. So while the principles are still the same in a lot of ways, there's all the screenshots. Unfortunately, most of them are different. So I would say look for a very, very recent book. I think some of the easier ways to stay on top of things are the blogs, and following, of course, AdEspresso blog. I blog regularly. Watching for a book that does have a more recent publish date is helpful as well. So yeah, it is challenging to keep up with the books that are out there. I am going to have a new book coming out on Facebook advertising, hopefully in the next few months. Halfway through.
Awesome.
Yeah, halfway through, but now I have to get it out before I have to rewrite it again.
If they keep changing things like in the last couple of weeks, you
I
might
know.
really have to rewrite it. Awesome. So a lot of thank you. A lot of people. Congrats on Love Factory. Thanks for this. We'll check on the recording. Awesome. The last question is, when will the classes open for Social Media Manager School from Janice?
Yeah, it is opening actually on April 3rd. So we open a few times a year for Social Media Manager School. So we are opening up April 3rd, and we are open until April 12th for enrollment, and then we'll probably be again in the fall.
Awesome. This was the last question. Thank you, everyone who attended. Thank you, Andrea. And we'll be sending out an email as soon as the recording are live. And I'm also going to insert the link to the ebook and the webinar in the email. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you so much, Andrea. It was so fun.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's so fun. Thanks so much.
Ciao.